The Department of Defense has officially announced that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick will be stepping down as the Director of AARO. While I was personally hoping that he would have followed in the footsteps of J. Allen Hynek, who went from a UFO debunker to a UFO advocate over the course of his tenure in Project Blue Book. But unfortunately, it appears that Dr. Kirkpatrick's legacy is going to be more similar to that of Dr. Edward Condon, who led the Air Force-sponsored UFO investigation of the late 60s that was known as the Condon Report, a report that was then used by the Air Force to justify the termination of Project Blue Book. A report that concluded that, quote, little if anything has come from the study of UFOs in the past 21 years. But oddly enough, at the exact same time that statement was being written, the future leaders of the Air Force were learning about UFO history at the U.S. Air Force Academy, because the textbook that was used to teach an upper-level physics class had a chapter in it about UFOs. And that chapter reached the conclusion that Air Force cadets should keep an open and skeptical mind about UFOs. Which is a much different conclusion than the Condon report came to, which stated that further extensive study of UFO sightings is not justified. Kirkpatrick and Condon are also similar in several other ways. They're both physicists and they've both taught courses at universities, with Condon serving as an associate professor at Princeton, and Kirkpatrick serving as an adjunct professor at the University of Georgia. And they're now both associated with our nation's nuclear complex, with Condon's short 6-week stint on the Manhattan Project that was recently highlighted in the movie Oppenheimer, and with Sean Kirkpatrick recently deciding to take his talents to Oak Ridge National Labs, as documented in the staff direct. Where'd it go? What happened? Well, I guess that it's just a total coincidence that one day after they posted Kirkpatrick to the Oak Ridge website, a national lab that just so happens to be ran by UT and Battelle on behalf of the Department of Energy, which caused Ross Coulthart to raise some conflict of interest questions associated with the relationship between Battelle, an organization with deep government ties that has long been rumored to be part of the FOIA-exempt UFO cover-up, and Dr. Kirkpatrick, the director of the government's forward-facing UFO investigation office, who has recently and very publicly been called a liar by UFO whistleblower David Grush, because of the statements that Kirkpatrick has recently made about their interactions that don't align with the record. And Kirkpatrick is also being accused of fostering an atmosphere of disinterest at AARO, an atmosphere that has resulted in UFO whistleblowers not trusting Kirkpatrick. And as he prepares to step down from AARO next month, Kirkpatrick is claiming that he, quote, accomplished everything he said he was going to do. My completely unfounded speculation is that his goals were actually more closely related but different than those of Edward Condon, and that their true missions were both dictated to them prior to their actual involvement in the UFO investigation. Because according to a slightly younger George Knapp, Edward Condon
said in a speech that the government should get out of the UFO business. There's nothing to it. He later wrote the authors of UFO books should be horsewhipped. There is even evidence that the study's conclusions were written before the project even began.
And it's my assumption that the role that Kirkpatrick was assigned to play was to completely divorce the current and future government UFO investigations from the cases and investigations of their past, which is the same whitewashing of the past that NASA has recently announced they'll participate in as well. And don't forget that Kirkpatrick has been working hand in hand with the NASA effort. My gut tells me that the current government is doing this because they're unwilling to be held accountable for the sins of their past. But what do you think?